There's a kind of silence that doesn't calm you. It sharpens you. In ancient Japan, warriors believed this silence was more dangerous than anger, because once you entered it, there was nothing left to stop you. He wakes up to noise, not the sound of the world, but the sound inside his head. Notifications, opinions, regrets, plans that never harden into action. Every decision feels negotiated. Every commitment feels temporary. He tells himself he'll focus after things settle down. He'll become disciplined once motivation returns. He'll act decisively when clarity arrives. But clarity never comes. The modern man is not weak because he lacks strength. He is weak because his mind never stops talking. In ancient Japan, this constant inner dialogue would have been seen as a fatal flaw, not a personality trait, a liability. Because a noisy mind hesitates, and hesitation gets you killed. The last Ronin understood this long before he ever lifted a blade. In Bushido and Zen, silence was not the absence of sound, it was the absence of inner negotiation. Samurai did not train to silence the world, they trained to silence the self. Zen called this Mushin, no mind. Not ignorance, not emptiness, but a mind so disciplined it no longer argues with reality. When the Ronin stood before an opponent, there was no commentary, no fear analysis, no fantasy of victory or loss, only what is. This silence made him deadly, not because it removed emotion, but because it removed delay. Modern psychology would later confirm this truth. The brain performs best when it is not multitasking internally. Peak performance emerges when cognition quiets and action becomes reflex. But the samurai knew this centuries earlier. They didn't call it performance, they called it survival. The hardest enemy the Ronin ever faced was not flesh and steel. It was the voice that whispered, "Wait, reconsider, protect yourself." Biology resists silence. The nervous system craves stimulation. The ego craves commentary. Silence feels like death because the ego survives by speaking. Zen interprets this struggle clearly. What feels like losing yourself is actually losing illusion. The Ronin learned this through brutal repetition, sitting in stillness while the mind screamed, training while exhaustion begged for compromise, standing alone without reassurance. Each moment was a battle, not against weakness, but against escape. Bushido demanded one terrifying discipline: do not act until the mind is silent. Not calm, silent. Because calm can still hesitate, silence cannot. The Ronin didn't seek confidence, he sought inevitability. Once the mind was quiet, action followed naturally, without force. No motivation, no hype, no emotional surge. Modern men resist this because silence exposes them. Without noise, excuses die, distraction disappears, responsibility becomes unavoidable. But this is exactly why it works. Silence removes decision paralysis. It collapses complexity into clarity. It turns life from debate into movement. Water shapes stone, not through power, but consistency. The Ronin treated silence the same way, practiced daily, without gaps, without exceptions. Zen monks sit every day not to relax, but to starve the mind of noise. Neuroscience now confirms this. Repetition rewires identity. Consistency collapses resistance. The brain learns what it must obey. Gaps create negotiation. Consistency creates inevitability. The Ronin never relied on discipline, he relied on ritual. And ritual does not ask how you feel. Ancient warriors did not wait for chaos to decide who they were. They pre-decided. Before battle, vows were taken. Before travel, codes were recited. Before temptation, boundaries were set. The Ronin did not trust his future self, he trained his present self. Modern equivalents exist, removing distractions before focus is needed, establishing rules before emotion interferes, deciding identity before circumstances challenge it. Silence is easier when decisions are already made. Zen calls this freedom. Bushido calls it honor. One day, the noise stops. Not because life is quiet, but because you are. The voice that once begged for escape fades. The need for reassurance dissolves. Action becomes clean, direct, uncompromising. This is the birth of the disciplined self and the death of the inconsistent one. The last Ronin was feared not for his strength, but for his stillness, because once silence enters the mind, there is nothing left to argue with reality. Only the path remains, and the path does not hesitate.